you very much for joining me. And it is a special honor and a privilege this Holy Week to be joined by Bishop Donald DeGrood, newly ordained, really, bishop for the Sioux Falls Catholic Diocese. It doesn't seem like that long ago, and yet it seems like a long time ago, Bishop, that you assumed your new role. Talk about an unprecedented way to begin a new role. What has the last month or so been like for you?
Well, it was probably about the last several months prior to that. As soon as I got the call from the Pope's delegate, the nuncio, that I'd been appointed the new bishop, my life forever changed. And so there were lots of things coming at me. And so it was kind of a crazy run from then up until the day of my ordination on December 13th. But then, of course, everything, as you're saying, after that. So it's been a very unique time in my life, and certainly a unique time for all of us with this pandemic.
So what are some of the first steps and the key steps that you have taken to try to help navigate the church through a time really unlike very many in its history?
Great question. So the key for me has really been two things. One is prayer, just really taking into prayer, realizing that I need God's grace, because the spiritual power that God gives each of us, if our hearts are open to it, gives us insight above and beyond what we can know on a human level. So first of all, the spiritual approach is so helpful to me. Secondly, being able to seek insight and counsel from others. So certainly the health professionals' insights, the government's professional insights, all the kind of data points that we can gather. So when there's time for me to make decisions, like, for example, the suspension of masses for the well-being of the vulnerable and to try to protect so it doesn't keep spreading as much, try to manage that as best we can and cooperate with that. So having that data at the table, so kind of the human knowledge, if you will, but then also turning to God and asking for the grace and insight in light of the human knowledge that I'm given and what I sense He wants me to do.
How have you gone about trying to continue connecting with the members of the diocese, with the faithful here, when they can't come into a church? What types of approaches have you taken?
Yeah, I'm so grateful to our chancery staff. They very quickly got on the idea of, hey, let's try to provide a bunch of resources that people could access online. So they provided different resource ideas and links, those kinds of things, to give people tools to be able to work with their children, for example, at home, if they're, let's say, faith formation families. I've really sensed that the Lord wanted me, whenever I'd get a sense in prayer, to give a little video clip. I've used that as a very helpful tool that we would push out or put on the website. We're fortunate here in our diocese to have had the TV Mass going on for some time. So being able to regularly have Mass that's live streamed and then also televised some. So those have been some of the key ways. I've tried to stay connected with Zoom, with various groups that I can't meet with personally because of the number, for example. So just using the advantages of technology through email, Zoom, those sorts of things, in addition to video clips and other resources of the electronic sorts of things.
There was some helpful advice, I thought, on one of the TV masses in recent weeks that might be worth revisiting here as Easter approaches. And that was around this idea of creating a church-like environment in your home. You know, maybe it's not just sitting down on the couch in front of your television to take in the Mass. Do you have any tips for people as they are going to be joining you, perhaps for Good Friday services and certainly Easter Sunday and beyond?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say, there might be some folks that already have a place in their home, like a little set-aside chapel sort of thing, or some place they like to pray. And whether they do or they don't, if they have access, depending on if it's through for example, something that's portable that they can move to different areas, my suggestion would be is to create a little space within the home where there can be that attentiveness. One can set aside put around certain images. A cross, for example, on Good Friday might be a helpful thing. Certainly resources that would be on the internet that you can pull something up and have something to literally look at, or pictures that could be printed off and even put on the kids' bedroom wall or something, if that's where they want to have their prayer time. But it's really trying to create a space that's not unlike, for example, what I have at the bishop's house is a chapel that's set aside for me to go, and that's a special place for me to pray. People within their homes, wherever it might be, it could be in some little corner, some little niche, some room, and they say, you know what, when we're going to be watching live stream Mass today, let's just go to that little prayer place. And so little things, the external things, and just kind of in our minds, let's take a moment of silence and prepare into the celebration. So, for example, if they're watching the live stream from their own parish or the Archdiocesan website or whatever they might choose, they're kind of setting the context, getting ready for it, even as they enter into watching the live stream.
We are going to be sharing this on Good Friday, incredibly significant time for the church here as we continue on with Holy Week and Easter Sunday. What are some of the ways that people can connect, can get online or otherwise, can turn on the television and still feel like they are being part of this and participating?
Yeah, it's a great question you're asking. So typically on Good Friday, I remember even my parents years ago saying that, Good Fridays were kind of that day where there was a lot of silence and there was a lot of kind of being alone and pondering upon all that happened on Good Friday. So I think really two things. One, you look for the resources that are available. So the Good Friday services through your own parish or through the website or whatever other means. But also to realize that Good Friday is this time of we're really reflecting on a deeper level. And so even the quiet, the isolation that our environment now has us in can be a wonderful opportunity to personally enter into what the time was like for the disciples and the people that would have witnessed Jesus' death, right? All their hopes and all that they wanted, or the normalcy of life prior to Jesus' death suddenly has changed. And that might not be unlike us when so much has changed and we're wrestling with it. For us to relate that emotion to the Lord and take it to prayer and just ask for him to be with us, because we're so fortunate as Christians and as Catholics to know the end of the story is not his death. It's resurrection and the power over sin and death, and that he restores us to life as we look forward to at Easter.
I feel like the parishes have really taken ownership of these changing times. I mean, these drive-through blessings that they're doing. Can you give me a little sense for what's happening throughout the diocese, not just in Sioux Falls, but even beyond? And are the parishes sharing ideas? How is that all working?
It's been an absolute delight for me as the new bishop to see the creativity of the various pastors and even parents who've shared a little bit about what they're going to do on Easter Sunday, for example, and how this can be a special year for them. And so what I appreciate is that kind of creative thinking. You gave some great examples. Another priest was putting palms and, in a windshield wipers so that, there wasn't a literal handoff so they could still preserve the 6-foot social distancing to, creating little waters of holy water bottle, but leaving it for people to come in whenever they want to come in and pray. There's been times of adoration. Somebody set out an adoration opportunity outside. And I know here at the cathedral, they're going to have a drive-by on Easter Sunday in the afternoon, where they can drive by and have a blessing with the Blessed Sacrament between a certain period of time. I think it's like from 2 to 4. So I've just heard all kinds of creative things. I heard one priest say, on Good Friday, I made this cross that resembles Christ, and it's really heavy, and I'm going to carry that through the streets, and my parishioners can follow in their cars, right? So creative ways to enter in, to make the journey, whether it's Good Friday, certainly Easter celebration as well.
It's great to hear. It's uplifting, but I want to keep it real too, because I think people are struggling, right? And in some cases, it's a test of faith. Do you have any thoughts for them? And are there places they can go if they do feel like they're struggling and they just need to talk it out with someone?
Great question. So I think a few things. One is, first of all, those thoughts and feelings are very normal and completely understandable. And what I find in my own life when I'm struggling with something, the best thing for me to do is to relate them to the Lord. And to be honest, like you're saying, right, to be real, like, no, this is really hard. And I just want to receive the real body and blood of Jesus physically, not just sacramentally. Like my dear mother says, it's just not the same. And she's right. It's not the same. So I think being open and honest, talking that out. We have family, we have friends, we can talk on the phone, we can talk through various means of technology. So doing the outreach with each other and being attentive to like those we think might especially be struggling can be wonderful ways for us to connect with them.
I think the unknown makes all of this so difficult too. And I'll ask you this, even though it's a difficult question, but do you have any sense from a church standpoint when things might get back to quote unquote normal? Or will there be measures that will have to be taken even after we're able to return to the church, for instance, just to try to keep everybody safe?
Yeah, great questions. I would say that's something that's going to be further discernment, and it's such an unknown to me yet. Even from the counsel that I've received so far from the medical profession, or even government, how long this thing's going to last. There's different theories out there, different ideas. I think what it's going to mean, my hope is that it will mean that in this time of absence, I think of that beautiful expression that with absence increases fondness. And boy, I've been hearing that from different people. I'm just so longing to receive Eucharist again. I think one of the beautiful things will be is when we can be back together. Hopefully this time of waiting and longing and the struggle that we have, we'll appreciate it that much more. But also the sign of that intense longing that we have, hopefully is teaches us something about how meaningful our faith is to us, which is a wonderful gift.
Absolutely. Well, this is an incredibly a busy time, a meaningful time for you, I know, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Any other message, though, for the Sioux Falls community here as Easter approaches before I let you go?
I think the main thing is we know from history in church and in history in civil societies, there's challenging times. But if we, in our faith, we turn to the Lord, we know that He's with us in the good times and the bad. He will see us through. So my words would be mostly, let's turn our eyes to the Lord. Let's turn our heart to the Lord. Let's rely on Him, relate our hearts to Him, and then receive what He wants to give us, and let Him, this Easter season and this Triduum, as we work through Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and the Easter season, to let Him just do in us what He wants to do, and to really trust that He has great things in the end for us, even though we struggle right now.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining me, Bishop Donald DeGrood. Happy Easter to you. And hopefully we will get a chance to catch up with you again soon and maybe talk about those churches reopening eventually as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for the privilege. God bless you and happy Easter to everybody.
Thank you so much.
All right.